to Sherry's section, or do you want to wait and do Vince and Clay and then Sherry? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Just let me get myself caught up here. Okay. Welcome everyone to our first meeting of the new year. Hopefully you're all staying warm and dry, and if not, hopefully that will come soon. So today we will have our regular agenda. I'll look for public comment in a moment. I'm going to be looking for a motion to approve the November 18th executive committee meeting minutes. And then, as I just mentioned, we'll go into having Vince present first so that he can roll off as he needs to, then Clay, and then Sherry. And then following that, Julia will do a legislative update, and then Deb Mumhill will be with us to talk about workforce for the Workforce Readiness Committee. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So first up, Sydney, do we have anyone with public comment?
Sorry, I was clicking to a different screen. No public comment. And we do have quorum.
Okay, perfect. Well, then we better hurry up and approve our agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes, presuming that you've each read those, and then a second.
I make a motion.
Not second.
Thank you.
That was Sherry, Dr. Bennings, just in case.
Great. All right. So with that, all in favor to approve the minutes, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Was anyone opposed? And did anyone abstain? Okay, great. Thank you for that. All right, Vince, I think you are up to provide a legislative update. Is that correct?
Yes, and I'll be relatively brief because the governor only is bringing forward one bill in the short session, but it's a big bill, but I can maybe touch on some other things that I know are going on and even mention some stuff that David's team is working hard on as well. So the governor, I'm sure, forgive me if most of you know this already, but we're heading into a short 35-day legislative session, which is what happens in the even years of our legislative calendar. You know, sometimes people try and squeeze an entire 6-month session into 35 days. I think everyone's hoping to not have that be the case. But with a short session, all the legislators are restricted to a smaller number of bills, and the governor is restricted to no more than 3 bills. And with her priority around housing, she elected to just bring forward one bill that's going to be a big bill that is a revamped, reimagined version of the bill that did not quite make it across the finish line in the 2023 session around increasing housing production. And there's a lot of complexities involved in that bill that I'm not super educated. I can probably get half an inch deep on, but it is connected to a $500 million request, one-time money that would be involve $200 million of that would be asked for investment in what we're calling a new middle income housing finance proposal that would sit in Oregon Housing Community Services Department. Business Oregon, which is one of the agencies is in my portfolio, would manage and run a $200 million infrastructure fund that would be targeting providing new water, sewer, even grade 8, nested road infrastructure necessary to help build out new housing projects. And they have quite a bit of experience doing something like that. And then there's a variety of like smaller investments tied in with land readiness, land preparation. There's even like a small amount in that 500 million that is a small fund focused on just providing green infrastructure such as electric, housing infrastructure investment program. I'm a little fuzzy on that detail and specifics, but anyway, it all adds up to 500 million. And so we're just currently navigating that request, and then also hearing from what other legislative asks and focus. There's certainly some conversations around behavioral health and some other things. Just since David is on the phone, we've been working really closely with the agency on just a few things. One, there are a couple issues around paid family leave that if can come together, we'd like to make a few technical fixes to the paid family leave program. There's also, didn't make across the long session, an adjustment to the way, David can tell me what it's called. I only know it as CDAF, but
our supplemental employment department administrative fund, basically more money to help run the unemployment insurance program in this case.
so we have a bill that would make an adjustment so that we can give the agency some more resources to maintain the workload that's happening in the unemployment area. So that's something we're working on as well. And then everything else, we're kind of in a wait and see mode to see what comes forward on legislative requests. The goal is to keep it as non-controversial as possible and get in and out of the legislative session. The one thing, going back to the housing, because I know Steve and I have had this conversation, and I'm sure I'm going to bring some people in the WTDB back to this conversation. If the governor is successful in getting this housing production package, I think that we'll be quickly pivoting to, great, we have these financial resources. How are we going to tackle the workforce needs that would need to align with that housing goal? And so I anticipate that right after the short session, when we know where we land on the proposal, that we would quickly move. And I'm going to look to bring in several people who've been working on housing construction, in particular on workforce, soon after. So happy to answer other questions if you think I've maybe missed something. I don't think that there's anything out of the heck that I've heard of, or anything, any other workforce legislation that is coming forward in the short session. But if others have it, I'm happy to comment on it if there is. I will say, just last thing, this is a common thing that the executive branch does, but we've requested that all agencies and even like boards and commissions take either a no position or a neutral position on other bills outside of what the governor's priority is, and then have a conversation with us. There may be bills like, technically the CDAF bill and the paid family leave bills are not governor's office bills. We will certainly are working with them to see them with the positive conclusion, but otherwise, agencies have been instructed or requested to take a position of neutrality, but engagement, so that operationally things could happen if they did move forward.
Thank you for that. Questions for Vince?
I will say the very last thing is 2025 is quickly coming upon us, and that process of establishing policies and budgets for the governor's process is happening in a very short order, and we're working with the HEC and employment department, and we'll be certainly engaging with WTDB on concepts related to the world you all focus on very soon, and stay tuned for that.
That's great. Love to opine on that. Okay, anything else? All right, Clay, you are up next.
Well,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Vince.
Anne. Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for my voice.
It's a little bit scratchy for some reason. So I have 3 items, and I'm assuming that I can just kind of roll from one to the next to the next. So first of all, state and local planning. I'll start with local planning. The local boards are currently working on their plans. Their plans are due March 18th, and that gives us enough time to review them. And if we have any questions or concerns, we can get those resolved, and then ultimately present a recommendation to the WTDB in June to approve those plans. And if we have any outstanding concerns, we will work to resolve them between the time that they submit their plans to the time that we present them to you, so that they're all good to go and can be approved in June. State planning, all of the agencies that are a party to the state plan are currently working hard to finish and wrap up their particular sections. This is a huge document. I don't know if any of you have tried to wade into the past document, but our current state plan is around 500 pages. And that includes a ton of compliance stuff, which obviously you don't necessarily need to take a look at. It's things that our federal overseers will want to look at, but we will have an opportunity for you to see the draft new state plan in the month of February. We'll be asking the agencies to complete their work on a draft plan by next Friday, and then we will post it for public comment the following Monday. And during that public comment period will be a time that you can review the plan, get familiar with the plan, so that we have a special meeting, just a voting meeting on Leap Day, February 29th, to approve the state plan for submission, which then will be submitted through the portal that's developed by various federal agencies on March the 4th. And then during the next 90 days, roughly, our federal programs will be asking us questions, having us respond to those questions, or potentially even, an item, an issue here, something we may have forgotten. And then they, similar to us approving local plans, will provide us with approval in that June timeframe. So that's kind of state and local planning. You'll hear a lot more as we, in each of the meetings as we go forward. A lot of activity between now and the end of June. So any questions on planning? Okay.
I do have a question, and maybe this is like later down the road, but just based on what Vince was just talking about, how does the potential passage of the governor's focus area on housing impact those plans? Like, do those plans have enough flexibility or whatever built into them, that if something comes from that process that's like, oh, we got to pivot and we really need to focus over here? Or does the timing always just work out nicely somehow?
Well, it's a good question, and I'll leave room for Julia and Todd to add anything they might want to what I'll share. We have made an effort, as you know, to collect joint priorities among the workforce system. It was a somewhat imperfect process this time. In the future, it'll be better, where we will engage more partners earlier in the process, so that we can make sure to try to accommodate all the different needs and priorities that are coming up. That will be a really big assistance in the future in making sure that we're all sort of pulling in the same direction, because the plan itself is not super flexible, and we need to build in as much time up front so that we can be responding to the right priorities as we can. And so that's something that we'll get better and better at as we go forward. That said, we do have some narrative and some commentary, and we've been working with some of the agencies to talk about some of the things like what Ben said in terms of building the workforce for the construction workforce and other necessary workforces as we go forward. So we're working at it, and we're going to get better at it. But that's kind of the situation that I feel like we're in. Julia, Todd, you want to add anything to that?
Or you can say something, Julia.
Yeah, I'll just add that our plan doesn't necessarily call out specific industries or sectors. It's like, we're focusing on those that are in demand and critical to Oregon. So that gives us the flexibility to, if the governor says construction is a critical industry, I mean, obviously it is, but if she chose something else as well, it would give us the flexibility to be able to focus on it within the parameters of the plan.
Yeah, and I would, that's really good, Julia. And I would just add that we do have a midpoint. The state plan is a 4-year plan. We do have a 2-year midpoint in the process where we can go in and make changes and amendments to the plan. How that would look obviously would depend on what the piece of legislation looks like. But there is an opportunity perhaps for changes at the 2-year point.
There is, the last thing I'll say, there is definitely an awareness that we can increase and improve the alignment in all of these areas relative to planning and working together with the complex system that is workforce. But this also gives me a little bit of a segue into the next topic, which is the Talent Summit, Talent Assessment, because the Talent Assessment is going to address, among other things, the construction industries. That's going to be part of the results that are provided in the talent assessment, part of the focus areas of the report. So that's going to be something that you'll see at the Talent Summit. We expect a draft of that plan. They're currently gathering data, and oh, by the way, thank you very much for anybody and everybody who helped with focus groups or interviews or is responding to the survey. Really appreciate that. And so does our consultant, SRI. They will then gather and collect and collate and analyze that data and present to us a draft report late in February. And then based on some back and forth and comments, they'll have a final report that'll be released at the Talent Summit, which is May the 14th and 15th. The save the date went out yesterday, and we will have much more information coming between now and the summit about the agenda, speakers, details, and logistics, all of those kinds of things. So you'll hear much more about the summit. But I wanted to highlight the fact that because of your question, and that construction is a focus area of the talent assessment. Any questions about the assessment or summit? Okay, last.
I don't know if I got to save the. I don't remember getting a save the date. Maybe I did. I just didn't see it. But because I know we have a meeting scheduled on the 15th of the executive committee of May, and then so anyway, yeah, just anything I could get so I can figure out the timing. Because oddly enough, the calendar already has things on it for May.
Well, I would imagine so. All of you probably have things. You're very busy. We wish we would have got to save the date out even sooner, but we're happy it's out now, and I'll make sure you get it, Sherry. The last thing is the WTDB policy work group. In the past, we have kind of had sort of a bit of an inconsistent approach to policies. The WTDB, as the state workforce board under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, is required at times to create policies to guide the workforce system here in Oregon. And sometimes, even though there may not be a requirement to produce a policy, there's a desire to produce a policy based on state law or priorities of the board or for some other relevant reason. And we have, as I said, kind of had a bit of an inconsistent approach in the past for a variety of reasons, but we did recognize this past year in 23 that we wanted to improve that process and make it more of a formalized, consistent approach, and at the same time gather together folks representing different perspectives to help us to be more inclusive and more transparent in how we develop policies that will ultimately come to you for approval. So we have created a new process that will follow. We've created a new group, what we're calling the WTDB Policy Work Group, who has their first meeting next Friday. This is a group of folks who represent the agencies who are a part of WorkSource Oregon, and people who have expertise from a variety of different perspectives. And we will bring policies there that may be in need of revision. We'll bring policies there or ideas for policies for maybe that may be new. And the work group will consider whether or not that there's a real need. They'll work through that need, help foster the development of policy, review and refine it, and then ultimately they will provide a recommendation to the WTDB about approving a particular policy. And so it's something that you probably won't see anything come on your agenda in the very near future, but within the next few months, you probably will see some of the work of the work group appearing on a future agenda for the WTDB. So we wanted to give you a bit of a early heads up that this was coming, and we'll provide more background and certainly more information as we bring policies forward for approval. So any questions about that? Excellent. Well, I hope you all have a great afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you, Clay. All right. With that, we're going to move into kind of this next section, which will be some opportunity for more group participation versus report out. And Sherry has graciously agreed to lead us in this discussion. And then just as a reminder, I think I mentioned at the top of the call when a few of you were on that I've got to roll off at 2 o'clock, and I'll try to rejoin assuming my meeting gets done in time. It's outage related, so I do have to drop. So Sherry, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much. So do we have my little PowerPoint, or should I share mine?
I think Sydney, do you have the PowerPoint?
I do not, no.
Okay, I can share it, Sherry. And then did you want me to copy and paste those
Questions
bullets?
into the chat, yeah.
Oh, that's pretty big.
Yeah, you can make it smaller. It came right out of the PowerPoint. Okay, the questions are going to be for in a minute, but
here we go.
I was going to say
PowerPoint.
I can share my own screen too.
Got it?
Yeah, you're gonna get in presentation mode. Can you get in presentation? Oh, or slideshow mode? Yeah, can you get into slideshow mode, Todd? The slideshow up there?
Hold on a minute.
All right, and we'll just go back to the first slide. So so I am going to facilitate a little conversation with everybody about agreements for the board. And the goal here is just to kind of think a little bit about how we would like WTDB agreements to be, what we would like them to focus on. And I'm going to talk for just a quick minute about why we would have agreements. So we'll go to the next slide and what the purpose of agreements are. So what are workplace agreements? So workplace agreements are broadly defined. So they could encompass a large company, a board like ourselves, a work group. It could be any type of gathering of people who would like some agreements about how they're going to work together. And the purpose of having these agreements being developed by the group and agreed upon and utilized is so that we have a sense of how we are to be with each other and how we can achieve our goals. It doesn't necessarily mean there's any problem with a group. It is, you can think of it too as a proactive measure to keep there from being problems. So it's one way to think about agreements. Of course, people do sometimes want to bring into agreements when there have been disputes or difficulties, but it can be proactive, it can be reactive. I think it is better when they're proactive so that when something does come up, you can refer back to the agreements and you have clarity, and it's not like, this time I feel this way about this interaction, or I'm going to treat this interaction this way. Like, you have clarity about what you are agreeing and when you're together. So workplace agreements are essential for a couple of reasons. First, they can define expectations, so outlining each member's roles, responsibilities, expectations, ensuring everyone's on the same page. They can help enhance communication, establishing communication protocols and processes. Better helps understanding and collaboration. Conflict resolution, as I just alluded to, these agreements can include mechanisms for resolving disputes or promoting a harmonious work environment. Performance standards, you can use these types of agreements to set performance benchmarks, helping to maintain high quality and productivity. And in some cases, legal protection, right? Agreements can offer legal protection for employers and employees by defining terms of employment and rights. They can also be kind of a jumping off point, so you don't get all the way to the legal issue before you get there. It can help foster team cohesion by establishing shared goals and values and help building a cohesive, motivated team. So next slide. So workplace, I'm going to take you through a couple of examples, and then the final example is going to be just like my idea of something the WTDB could do, and then we're going to go into breakout groups and kind of do a little noodling on this. So I'm going to give you an example. The first example is next slide. This comes from the East Cascade Works, and this is a very detailed. So first we're going to look at a detailed one, then we're going to look at a much briefer one. So this is something, Todd, who gave you this again?
Heather Fick.
Heather gave this to us to take a look at. Oh, there we go. And so the goal here is there's 2 pages, so we'll go through each, but it's really comprehensive. So they have like an opening paragraph. East Cascades, EC, talks about what they're here to do. They got this 10-county region, talks about who they are. And then the second short paragraph talks about what they envision. And then they have the volunteer, the person sign their name and and agree to these expected values. So the expected values they have are: we embrace equity and inclusion, we are trusted experts in workforce development and rigorous stewards of public funds, we are collaborative and neutral conveners, we inspire a call to action, we are results driven, we're innovative problem solvers. So they start broad, right, with who they are. Then they have that second paragraph that kind of flows into what you're going to be agreeing to. And then next slide. And then they go a little further. They also talk about what they're expected to do. So as a volunteer member, I also understand that I'm expected to adhere to the bylaws, attend and actively participate in the meetings that are outlined, executive committee meetings if applicable, advance notice of absences, actively participate in the review and evaluation of documents, all that kind of stuff, participate in board voting where, except where you're conflicted, adhere to the conflict of interest policy, sign a letter of support where appropriate, provide input, actively recruit new members, speak on behalf of the organization, volunteer in subcommittees, that type of thing. This is a version of agreements. It actually goes further, right? So it's really robust. It's like, this is what we believe in, and then this is also what I agree to do. You might see something like this more in a handbook or in a board book. And what we have been talking about is perhaps doing something that is more active, more shorter. So let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to show you something I was working on with Blanchet House. They had workplace agreements, but theirs you see are shorter. There's like 2 others, but I didn't think it was necessary to get them on this page. But they do the intro to, as part of our commitment to fostering a harmonious and productive work environment, we at Blanchet have outlined key agreements that are reflective of our core values. The purpose of the agreements is to help express our commitment to each other and ground us in our interactions. The work we do is fulfilling and stressful. It takes a lot. We believe that by creating, reviewing, and referring back to these agreements, we can support each other and hold each other accountable. Each one of these aligns with the acronym HOUSE. Like I said, there's 2 others that I didn't have, serving as a constant reminder for the standards we uphold. So when I did this with them, like that opening paragraph is like laying the foundation, right? And then we went to these very tight examples. So H is here. We practice active listening, ensuring that one person speaks at a time. We believe it is crucial to truly hear and understand the concerns of others, create an environment of mutual respect and understanding. O is own it. We reflect on the role each of us plays in any given outcome. Encouraging personal responsibility and awareness of one's actions is integral to our team dynamic and individual growth. Unclear. Uncertainty is not a weakness. If something is unclear, we ask a question rather than making assumptions. We strive to promote an environment where it is safe to ask for clarification, fostering open communication and learning. Now, these, and like I said, there's an S and an E, but I couldn't fit it on there. But these are simple, but you can see how they could be powerful. Because if there's a dispute, you can say, well, that was unclear, and I am just trying to clarify per our agreements, right? Or if someone says, well, it's not my responsibility, you say, well, I really want us to think about our owning it, right? Agreement, you see? So you can use these in like really practical, applicable ways. So there's that between the more detailed and the shorter. So that leads us to the next slide, which is, you can go to the next slide, which is some agreements I have come up with for the WTB. These are not agreements we have to have. I just wanted to get us started on something. So we might not use these at all. But for our purposes, I think there's a couple of questions I'd like people to answer in the breakout group, and I'll talk about those in a minute. But for our purposes, I'm just putting these 3 here as examples. So one would be open communication agreement. We agree to foster an open and honest communication environment where every member feels heard, respected. We commit to actively listening to others' perspectives, providing constructive feedback to ensure clarity and mutual understanding. Or respect inclusivity agreement. We uphold respect and inclusive atmosphere, valuing each member's contribution regardless of background or position. We pledge to maintain professionalism and courtesy in all of our interactions, embracing diverse points of view for the betterment of our goals. Goal-oriented collaboration. We commit to focusing our discussions and decisions on advancing our shared goals of workforce development. We agree to collaborate effectively using each member's strengths and expertise to achieve tangible outcomes for the benefit of Oregon's workforce. Those are like 3 examples of some things that we could use. Ours could be shorter, could be longer. Next slide. So what we're going to do is we're going to put us in some breakout groups. I know there aren't many of us, but I still think that smaller groups are easier to have conversations in, especially in teams. Like it's easy in a larger group to be like, but when you get in a smaller group, you have to kind of focus. So what I'd love people to talk about, and Todd did try to paste these questions, I'm sorry, they look big in the breakout group, is how long should the agreements be? Do you think they should be shorter, longer, 2 separate documents? So in other words, do we think for this group, we'd like that short, like we saw at Blanchet, that kind of, this is what we believe, we're gonna like make it, or is it the East Cascades, we like a longer, more detail, or hey, 2 separate documents, 1 short one and 1 longer one. What do you think about the sample agreements, edits or suggestions? And maybe Todd or Sydney can copy those and put them in the chat so you can see them too. And then how should we use these? Oh, what agreements would you add? You don't have to like come up with 4. I mean, if you just want to add 1, what agreement would you add? And if somebody can take notes on that or just scribble that down, that would be great. And then think about how should we use the agreements? Are these things that we should read aloud at the start of each meeting? Should we have people read it quietly, or should it be a document that is kept but is not read at each meeting? Each of those things has minuses and pluses, right? If it's something we read aloud, we're not going to want it to be super long, right? And super detailed. If it's something we read quietly, it could be probably somewhere in the middle. But if it's a document we keep, it could be longer, but will it be actionable? There is something about agreeing each time to the agreement that has value. So those are things to think about. So those are the questions to think about. We're going to go into the breakout rooms, I believe. And if possible, to copy the questions and pop them in. I think I might be able to do that over here. I don't think I need you.
I will be able to do that, Sherry.
Oh, okay.
And I have the Otter AI notes, one in each room. So we have a note taker.
I know, I'll finish. We're here to connect workers to
Go ahead,
employers.
Vince. We are here to serve. We got cut off. Sorry.
We're here to connect workers to employers to get to improve, I don't know, something to that part, to some level of improvement. Like that is an underlying goal and principle that our work should be focused on.
Yeah, and I think that goal-oriented collaboration agreement is hits that, right? Like it's that we are here to focus on shared goals of workforce development. Like that's why we're here. Like that's our primary goal. So yeah,
Okay,
I get.
sorry.
Okay.
I got it. I'm getting pinged, but thank you.
Okay. So we were like on it with that in and out of the breakout rooms, and I know we've lost some folks along the way, but I would love to hear from the other groups since I was in this group, kind of what you all chatted about and what you thought about the length of time and the type of things we would address, only because I'm tired of hearing myself talk for right now. So anybody from the other group want to give us a little debrief, a little readout?
I'm happy to share my thoughts. I wasn't taking notes, so I'm going to count on others to correct me or add.
That's fine.
I think we liked them. I think we made a wise decision based on us coming back in to try to defer to your expertise with wordsmithing some of what we thought of. But we like the short versions. We do like, even though it can feel silly sometimes, reciting them at the beginning to keep people focused on it. A little bit of wordsmithing if overall these are the agreements that we can remove from each individual one, the kind of we agree preamble, and just get to the action part of what it is. I think we talked about the goal-oriented one, perhaps talking about outcome-oriented, so it keeps us more focused on the large systemic outcomes. Talked about, and this is where we didn't have great phrasing figured out, everybody being kind of very actively engaged and prepared, and also coming in with their own perspectives from whatever their non-WTDB roles and experiences are, but making decisions and acting on behalf of the WTDB organizational priorities.
Anybody else from the group? That group?
I think he covered it all, you know, in terms of, in addition to what he mentioned, just centering what we do on the common goals of the WTDB. And Anne had a good comment talking about how, you know, she pulls off her PGE hat and puts on her WTDB hat, and bringing our individual perspectives of experience and organizations, but at the same time, drawing that into the conversation in a way that's focused on what is best through our efforts and work of the WTDB.
I would say that several of those are similar to our group. Preparation, participation, engagement definitely came up as a core agreement that we'd like to see expressed. I think our group also favored the shorter narratives as opposed to longer ones. We're thinking maybe 4 to 5 agreements. Again, those 3 were just suggestions, although I appreciate people like them, they are suggestions. I even am pitching for even shorter sentences, like, you know, bring our expertise, be prepared towards the action, you know, like word, 2-3 words, period, 2-3 words, period. Like that kind of thing is a potential. I couldn't come up with an acronym right off the top of my bat for WTDB, but maybe there's some other, maybe there's workforce, maybe there's work. Ooh, maybe there's work acronym, they get to work. But the other thing that came up just at the end, and other people from my group can speak also, is I mentioned the fact that in the communication one, like we want to communicate in a way that is respectful and open. But I think sometimes that we forget that we do have people on the board for a variety of backgrounds and reasons, and they are not steeped every day in workforce development. And our use of acronyms can be a prohibitive factor in people feeling comfortable participating. So I wonder in our communication if we want to say something like, you know, where possible, we'll explain the definitions, or for every meeting we'll have a definitional cheat sheet. You know, maybe every time we send out materials, if we could just do a WIOA, like all the acronyms that we think we use, and keep a running total, because I suspect, you know, I've been on this board for an incredibly long time, but even I get lost sometimes because I don't do it every day. You know, I'm doing something else every day. Like everybody on this board is doing something else every day. They know their workplace things, acronyms they're doing every day, but they don't always remember these. And I wonder if that can create a barrier for participation, because you don't want to say the wrong thing or get it wrong, and you do have something substantive, but you feel like, oh, this is a bunch of inside baseball talk, you know. And I think we have to break that a bit. I don't know, that's my thoughts. Other people in my group or other people?
I like that concept, and maybe it's even something, if we're trying to keep the phrasing short, as simple as talking about clear and accessible language. And then having, because when we've had new people join our agency, it is, you know, I think after about a year, you start to know what people are saying. The bureaucrat in me, it kills me to try to avoid a good acronym, but we have like a glossary that we maintain, and that's been a helpful tool to give to new people. And then we just try to explicitly remind everyone, hey, you know, that was a great comment that you just made. Can you go translate that into non-acronym language?
Yeah, clear communication. I love that. And me personally, I would advocate putting the acronym in every board packet every time we have a meeting, because it just is a part of the meeting, and we could have it a running list. If somebody says something in the meeting, it's not on the list, people can feel empowered to say, hey, can you define that, and can we add that to the list, right? So that we know what we're talking about, you know, or who we're talking about. Were there any other agreements that anybody came up with that they were like, oh, I was part of this group, I like this agreement, or oh, I wish we had this agreement, or we said it this way?
I think you did a good job of capturing everything that we chatted about in the breakout that you were in, Sherry. So I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody? Bueller?
Yeah. Sherry, I wanted to volunteer to help with the acronym, trying to make it fit into something catchy, if you'd like. We're great at that, the labor movement. We have young labor leaders yell, Oregon women labor leaders will owl. So
I love it. I love it. Yeah, come up. Let's come up with an acronym. Yeah, let's get together and come up with something and present it, which actually does flow into the next bit of business, which is moving the project forward. I mean, I just offered to facilitate a conversation because, well, I facilitate conversations, and I actually in my day job help people create agreements. So that is something I do, but I don't have to be the lead on it. You know what I mean? I'm happy to help, but I don't have to be. So Todd, do you all have a sense of how you'd like to follow up? Because I'm happy to participate with Chelsea and, you know, work on something. I'm happy to do a little work group. I mean, I don't, you know, however.
Yeah, I took some good notes. Maybe it would make sense for you and I and Chelsea to set up some time and continue the conversation, and then we can, you know, assign out the work to us and, you know, continue to move it forward. I don't think it should take too long. I think we should easily be able to come back with something pretty solid by the February executive committee meeting.
Yeah, something that people can edit. We could send it to them ahead of time and ask for any additional edits. Maybe we want to keep it tight. The overwhelming sweet spot seems to be 4 to 5. 4 to 5 statements is what we're keeping, no more than 5. And then my autopilot was in our group, and my autopilot is in this meeting, so I can get those notes and send them to you, Todd, that you can send them out. And if anybody else wants to be part of the group ID on this, they're welcome. Does that sound good? Okay.
Yeah,
so
sounds great.
We got to follow up. We got to plan. And I think you have 10 minutes before the other presentation. I know Deb is on the phone, but is somebody supposed to be on with her?
Well, yes, Deb is on, and Charlie Hopewell had a conflict and won't be able to make it. So Deb will either get a little bit more time here to fill in the 20 minutes or not, up to her. And we're a little bit ahead of schedule. As Ann said, she had to roll off at 2 as well. So with that, if
Deb is, just for correction, Deb is only 9 minutes at this point early. She was going to start at 2:20 and it's 2:11.
Oh yeah, thanks.
So it's just 9 minutes. So don't go crazy, Deb. It's just a 9-minute difference. Okay.
I will try to, somebody can be my clock keeper here, but I'm ready whenever you are, or unless this group all needs a break for a few minutes, you just let me know.
I think we're ready. I think people would love to take the time, if it ends earlier, to take it on the end, as my assumption. Okay. That's what it's looking like.
Great, thanks. Well, I will jump in. I'm going to share my screen with you. So I am, let's see. Are you seeing my screen? It says stop sharing. Are you seeing a screen that says Oregon Workforce Talent Development Board meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So here we go. I will go into presentation mode. So thank you for letting me join your executive meeting today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Deb Mumhill. I'm the executive director for Oregon STEM, which is this outside but alongside organization that is supporting the 13 legislatively supported and mandated STEM hubs across the state. I'm also a member of the Workforce Readiness and Advisory Committee, so I get to be part of some of the work that sits at a subcommittee. Yeah, I guess if Ann had to jump off, I'm quoting her. I was so inspired by her and others on the stage at the recent Oregon Leadership Summit in December, where so many people made it really clear that we need a new vision for talent development. And Ann's comment, I didn't put it in quotes because I don't know if I got it quite right, but her comment that a lack of strategy will not build our workforce rang really loud and clear with the work that we've been doing. So today I just want to provide a quick update to this executive committee on the conversations and initiatives that are happening across the workforce dev and education landscape. So I'm not going to have all of them, but there's a lot of different groups. Some of them are governor appointed, some are just sitting in other kind of state agencies. And sometimes I just sit and wonder how we're kind of weaving all the awareness and the work that's happening across those two. So where I feel there's just a really great opportunity for this committee is to help strengthen the definition of career readiness for our emerging talent. I'm still exploring who sets the definition in the state and the graduation requirements, and I'm suspecting it's a legislative concept or action that would elevate the definition, ensure that education aligns, and that an equitable and accessible strategy would be set forth to achieve the goal. So just as a refresher, I wanted to revisit, this is the Oregon Department of Education's definition of career readiness, is college and career ready Oregonians have acquired knowledge, skills, and professional behaviors that provide a starting point to enter and succeed in workplace, career training, and college courses leading to certificates and degrees. And then the actual ODE graduation requirement is that a student has completed 3 units from either CTE, a foreign language, or fine arts. So there's been lots of work done through JFF, Jobs for the Future, through the White House, and there's been a lot of really great reports that have come out that have elevated conditions for career readiness in the United States. And so one of those that we've been working around and trying to build our strategies on are these 3 pillars in the green boxes here. That a student or a graduate can describe clear and future career and occupational goals, that they can identify high demand and high wage opportunities, and that they can describe future learning and post-secondary training and education that align with our student goals. So we're still kind of looking around to say where and how can Oregon think about really making a more robust definition and alignment and strategy around career readiness. So we have opportunity in this space. We are looking at the data and data analysis, integration, and tool building around all things data to address the gaps that we've talked about quite a bit with the full committee and the executive committee prior. Is we continue to have that awareness gap where students can't be what they can't see. Just so many jobs are invisible to the student body and to their families, just depending on their demographics and and what their exposure is between their zip code, their school, and their community. There's definitely an access to opportunity gap, and so we'll talk a little bit at the end of here about one of the tools, the Clarifying Credential to Career Pathway tool. Some of you know it as CORI because we're using what Washington STEM to the north of us has developed. We've been huge advocates for career-connected software or career-connected learning software that would create individualized student career and academic plans, that we would have platforms to connect talent to emerging talent to jobs, and that we would have an ability to really build out our work-based learning opportunity. And then there's the skills gap that everybody talks about, and we'll be seeing more of information around that as the 2024 talent assessment report comes out. But we also want to adjust outside of that report, looking at data tools to inform CTE and CCL program expansion to track educational journeys and platforms. So those are kind of the opportunities that I think we have in front of us to address the awareness, the opportunity, and the skills gap. So what I wanted to share today, because a lot of this you've seen before, is to go into some state case studies around a statewide career-connected learning platform. And the one that we identified through all of our work, Sherry Clark and myself did all this deep dive into the different CCL platforms that are being used across the state, and we came back to UScience. And just to remind you, UScience is the only software out there that has a science-backed aptitude and discovery assessments. We have tons of data of when we turn a student loose to say, what do you think you want to be and pursue as a career? It puts them, it keeps their ability to reach their potential really, really, really low, because again, they can't envision and be something that they cannot see. So we're huge advocates of the aptitude side. It also gives that personalized coaching, college and career coach in their pocket. It gives them industry recognized certification exams. It gives them this career connected learning platform that they can really connect directly with local businesses and vice versa. And it gives impactful data analytics on the backside. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of Utah. They've been using the UScience industry certifications. There's over 200 of them since 2006. And then it was in 2009 when the Utah State Legislature funded UScience through their SCA, which is their student credential account. That SCA provides this common platform for teachers, counselors, students, work-based learning coordinators, and administrators. And when we say teachers, we're talking all from K-12 to community college, all the way up to higher education, and it's just linking everything together. How they've used it is Utah has really moved their career awareness down to 7th and 8th grade, and they're supporting a state mandated college and career awareness course that happens in that space. And then when they get to high school, 9th to 12th grade, those counselors, they have set up systems where college and career readiness counselors meet with students and parents to really plan out in detail 4-year course plans and prepare post-secondary steps. That also happens really beautifully within the platform itself. It's kind of like a generative AI career coach in every student's pocket once they have that platform or their platform and profile set up. It also is used by CTE programs are utilizing that aptitude assessment to better place students into pathways, because at a school level, they have the students' aptitudes and their reports by name. So how the Utah State Board of Education is using youth science data is for program enrollment and completer status. We don't really have a lot of that visibility in K-12 in the state of Oregon. So they're looking at industry certification tracking and enrollment for completer status in those CTE courses. They're looking at kind of a high-level college and career readiness in the state, and they can look at that and review that data by state, by district, by school, all the way down to program level. You can slice the data lots of different ways. It's really using data to really guide those students to better direct them to CTE opportunities for your course plans, career fairs, all those work-based learning opportunities, and then of course to really start to bridge them into post-secondary plans. I don't have data on this screen, but you'll see in the 2 states that I'm giving you case studies for, ever since they've adopted youth science, they have really increased their career or their community college enrollment and associate degree completion. And then of course, there's more data on meeting the state mandate that they've set in Utah around the middle school career awareness course. This is just some data for what what they've achieved. 3.5 million students, this is high school students, have completed industry level certifications in their state. And they've seen a 3 times increase in student use of this ever since they've really developed and integrated it into the curriculum. So they didn't just say, hey, school districts, here's a platform to use. They've been very, very intentional in helping schools integrate this into the middle school curriculum and making sure it ties to high school. Just wanted to quickly give you an example. There's a link on this slide that shows you some of the industry certifications. Again, they are set by industry. There's over 200 of them. They go really deep. I just pulled up 21st Century Skills since Charlie wasn't able to make this meeting. He was double booked with the CTE Advisory Committee today. But within 21st Century Skills, there is we are calling them essential employability skills, formerly called Oregon Essential Skills. So you can track, and a student can go in and take certifications to see if they've met the critical thinking, collaboration, communication, all those skills that we've been really highlighting. And then the beauty of this is it really aligns to Senate Bill 3, which is a newer Senate bill that is requiring in high school to have a financial literacy course and then also preparing for college and career, so a resume builder. So those are all built into this. So actually the schools would be able to track which students have hit that financial literacy, which ones are really developing what essential employability skills, and then who's also completed the career skills. Alongside that is a whole bunch of amazing certifications that sit within all of these industry clusters that align to the federal Perkins CTE clusters. Here's again Utah's untapped STEM workforce. So they've really used this youth science data. The way that you look at this is aptitude is the blue line, interest is the purple line. So they're really using this kind of data specifically to close the gaps in the 4 top industries that they focus on for economic development in their state, which is computers and tech, advanced manufacturing, architecture and construction, and the health sciences. Georgia, just wanted to give you another state. So they've been using youth science since 2017. So they've seen incredible academic results for their students. It gives you, GOSA is what they call their Governor's Office of Student Achievement report that they put out. And it just talks about kind of some of those SELs of self-awareness, that they have more confidence in their ability to make a decision career-wise, that they feel self-empowered. There's tons of data out there right now between youth science and Gallup research about the power of career-connected learning on hope and engagement. And then just the bottom bullet point down here, that students are more motivated to pursue a career pathway or post-secondary education or training. And for Georgia, they have hit 124,000 students using the certification. They haven't been, they're 11 years behind where Utah is, but they are seeing a huge growth in the school districts because, again, they had an implementation plan built with their schools on how they were going to bring this in. I put this one up here for Ann. So Georgia Power, loving youth science. They've really been able, from an industry standpoint, industry can create platforms and profiles and really get a look in on emerging talent, and they have identified that it's helped them really narrow the gap of where they need to be recruiting their future talent. Lots of additional case studies. Carla Clark is on this call. She is amazing. She is the Southern Oregon STEM Hub Director, and her hub has done a tremendous amount of work in meeting with school administrators to digest the U-Science data, helping them guide how they create student engagement strategies. They've seen over a 200% enrollment in their CTE courses in some of their high schools down there, and then how they should also invest in programs of study to make sure that every student can meet their potential. So lots of use case studies with this tool. From our side, we would get these statewide data dashboards where you can run the state reports, the regional reports, the ESD or a school district or a CTE regional report. You can align it to community colleges. There's a lot of ways to slice the data here. But you will be able, what we can do within these reports between not only aptitudes, but on the right side of the screen, looking and tracking industry certifications, CTE completer programs, is we can really help industry pinpoint where emerging talent is located by that school and by that region. We currently have over 535 schools in Oregon using U-Science. Many use their federal emergency relief funds to pay for this platform as a strategy to re-engage their students post-COVID. And we're scared that funding is running out September 24th. So time's really of the essence as we try to find a champion to continue funding of this powerful platform and really building it into an overall robust career readiness strategy, from the definition to the graduation requirements down to statewide adoption and implementation. This platform costs about $9.40 per student for middle school, high school, and then once they hit high school graduation, every student would have access to their profile 10 years post high school graduation. A lot of you have seen this one. Again, we do not have a talent pool problem in Oregon. We have the aptitudes, and in this slide, the aptitudes are in the purple. The interest is in the 7 or in the orange bars here. We only have an opportunity to really ensure and build a really robust career readiness strategy within our state. So that is the CCL software platform side. The other piece that we've talked a lot about within this executive committee and the Workforce Talent Development Full Board is a credential gap tool update. So I wanted to let you know that one is hitting the ground running. That one's a little bit easier. So the C3P tool is the Clarifying Credentials to Career Pathways with Data tool. You've heard me talk about it as CORI because up north our Washington STEM partners have developed it, and they're allowing us to use their approach to identifying where there's gaps in credentials. It's a tool that backs into, we know where the jobs are, we know the 10-year run rate of jobs, and it's all organized by region. And then we back in where there is a lack of credentialing opportunities. So if we need CNAs and we don't have any CTE healthcare pathways or community college programs within these areas where we need healthcare professionals, it will pinpoint that. So it's what we're going to develop is we're in the process of pursuing funding. We will make it free to all users. It'll be intuitive and easy to interpret for all learners, earners, employers, and educators. We are building a strategy for awareness around this tool, how we're going to implement it and how we're going to train on the tool and data reports. And then I did want to take a little bit of time to explore if the Workforce Talent Development Board will be supporting promotion or education around some of these kind of tools. I looked at your strategic plan again, and you do have this kind of awareness goal yourselves. And so wanted to see if we could take a few minutes and just explore as we develop these tools, like what the role WTDB can take within there. So did I hit my time? I thought I was going to share my 10 minutes with Charlie. So I'm back. Would love to answer any questions you have.
I think you did a perfect job. And I'm sorry I turned my camera off, but I have to stand up at a certain point. Like my back gets weird, and it just is weird for me wandering around on camera.
No worries.
I just don't want to be like stretching, like, what is she doing? The one question is, you mentioned for CORI that you all are pursuing funding. Do you want to talk a little bit more about funding for the first piece,
What's the name of the tool?
The
U-Science.
U-Science, that's the I'm
Yes.
calling it CCL software platform. I mean,
CCL,
we're advocating, yeah. That one, that's where I think we're going to need as a state. So I don't know where this falls between the STEM Investment Council and the WTDB and the semiconductor ecosystem and Future Ready Oregon, all these different groups that, you know, as I've tried, and I know there's more that I'm not even aware of, but those are the ones that I sit at the table of. Like, we're all working on workforce dev, right? We all have our initiatives. So who would be the person to add, or the group to advocate? And I'm assuming it's going to take a legislative concept to bring this forward, because it is $2.9 million per year for every middle school and high school student to have access to it. Again, that's $9.40 per student. But it would be part of our workforce strategy that we would start to build a statewide strategy on how we're going to develop our future talent at $9.40 per student. So that's where I'm a little at loss of, you'll have to educate me how all of that works, but I'm thinking we need to find some champions around that. And we're coming up to a very short session. I've been working on redrafts of other legislative concepts that have been in the works for months, so I get nervous because we're just a few weeks out. But at the same time, all these 535 schools that are already deep in using this tool and are huge advocates for it, their funding is going to run out September 2024. And then our next long legislative session doesn't start till January 2025. So I don't know how all that works. I'm here to kind of explore with you all.
Yeah, Vince, you miss Vince. You two crossed paths, but he gave us a bit of a focus point for the governor that it's housing for the short session, right? Do I have that? Am I saying that right? There isn't another thing that's going to be, you know, that they're going to push relevant to us than housing. Is that correct for statement, Todd?
I think that's right. I don't know if Julia had anything to add or.
To me.
That's right. So I think that's where they are.
Okay.
So then the question becomes, well, the questions, there's a couple of questions. One is there a way that this can help in the push toward housing development and legitimately be seen as a companion piece to make it work? And can that argument be made in a way that makes it a part of that? That's one. The second question is there a way for the schools themselves or through the Department of Education to try to push to get some supplemental funding to take them through to the longer session? I mean, is there a way to do that? Is there philanthropy? Is philanthropy an option? So you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
those
are
the brainstorming things, given the fact that what we've just heard about the focus of the short session doesn't sound like it's gonna have much wiggle room.
Yeah, those are great suggestions, Sherry. Thanks for those. I don't see how we could align to the housing initiative. ODE is really thankful that the Workforce Readiness Advisory Committee in Oregon STEM and our strategic plan is advocating for this, but I think their hands are tied. The philanthropy would be interesting. I've noticed we're Google, but you know, when we look at it's a big ask of a philanthropist. It would be close to $3 million, but we could try to pursue that avenue. There is legislative concept 183 coming forward. So that's the Semiconductor Talent Sustaining Fund and sub-accounts. Duncan Wise is leading that one. So I can explore that a little bit further, but I first wanted to check into WTDB.
Yeah, I mean, that one sounds like a really strong inquiry point, given what this tool could do and how it can identify and that CHIPS money and, you know, all of that, the whole deal, right, needs this workforce and needs to identify and, you know, so that to me feels like a strong line of inquiry. And maybe it's a combination of things, you know, with philanthropy, maybe it's 2 or 3, you know, philanthropic organizations that would be willing to I don't even like move it forward or stopgap fund it, basically, you know, until you can get to the long session in Oregon and then make that case there. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that might be a call to arms that a philanthropic organization can intellectually get behind. Like they love the idea if you're not asking them to fund something permanently. So if you had 3 philanthropic or 4 philanthropic organizations splitting the cost, like then it becomes manageable and how it's going to be long term, and you're going to use that case. Like I think they don't want to be the ones to fund it every year,
Right.
but the urgency part, but then also the work that Duncan is doing seems really aligned to my mind. But I don't know. Any other thoughts or suggestions?
I see Carla's comment. Thanks, Carla. Like you were finding alignment, maybe through the houselessness. Can you explain to me, like if we're going to go forward and pursue? I mean, I'm saying is that the Workforce Readiness Advisory Committee that goes and looks for those philanthropic dollars, as this is one of the recommendations in the work that we've been doing for the past year. Does the WTDB support that pursuit, or at least endorsement of? Is there a process that's happened in the past around that?
Those are all good questions, and I do not know the answer. Todd, have we done something like this, or like?
Not anything formal, Deb. In the past, any outreach to philanthropic or private sector kind of public-private partnership sort of strategy pursuit has pretty much been yours truly. Not only talking with existing board members to see if they're interested in supporting and making donations, but then also shopping their network, as well as reaching out to individual philanthropic organizations. So we really haven't had an organized strategy that's been a sort of formal process in that space.
Okay. Thanks,
I think
Todd.
I think that there have been other efforts at the Office of Workforce Investments, particularly when it comes to youth in that space. I don't know the details of what that engagement looked like, but I can check in with Doug Denning, who comes to mind, who's done some outreach with some of the foundations, and sort of see what he has to say about it and bring that back.
Okay. And then we'll get a quote for the 545 schools. I mean, that's not every middle school and high school. So the price tag comes way down. So if we did stopgap funding for those 545 school licenses, I'll get a number on that. Because we would just then say, sadly, we won't grow the program from basically the 2024-25 school year, because we'd have to wait till the January legislative session to really bring a new concept forward. All right. Well, thanks.
I just have one other thing. I mean, just to your last point, you're talking about working with the folks who already have it. You're not going to be able to expand it. Maybe they become a consortium and they become a group who pursues the funding. You know what I mean? Like, and so then you don't need us to do that. It's corralling them together to pursue this stopgap or even maybe longer funding, right? And that's a strong, like, I'm trying to think, who is that one funder, Todd? This is going to be like password because I can't remember. Who's that one funder who funds a lot of things with us and funds
Oregon Community Foundation?
No, not Oregon Community. It's they have another name.
PGE has a foundation.
It's not PGE. Oh, what is their name?
Murdoch. Big money comes from Murdoch.
Yeah,
sometimes Meyer Memorial Trust.
Although Murdoch is a good one to talk to, because I had heard, I mean, this was last year, 2023, but that they had money. They were
Ford family.
It's Ford. It's another one. It's not a family. I can't. They fund a lot of research, and anyway, if I find it, I'll send it out. But anyway, there are like if Deb, given your role and your position, if you work with that group to come up as a consortium in a potential grant or funding application that you could design and shop out to several of these larger folks, you might hit some good result, because a couple of things, those bigger donors would love the idea of these school systems kind of doing this innovative thing and coming together and partnering with an organization like yours. And then our role of the state could muddy the water a bit, because the foundations and folks get kind of, like, well, you're the state, or shouldn't you guys be able to pull some money out of your pocket? And it's like, well, no, because we budget or the state legislative session. And so in some sense, having the group that you're working with come together, come up with a proposal that they shop may be stronger in a way, especially for those philanthropic dollars, and potentially for the work that Duncan is doing, like saying, like, we have this group, and to be able to shop that, then that gives you an even more proof of concept when the longer legislative session comes on board. That this is so important. We've been able to get this investment, and we need you to pick it up now, because it is truly not sustainable beyond this point without the state. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
Yeah,
I would
exactly.
potentially think about it like that.
Mm-hmm. That's great thinking. Thanks, Sherry. You're really good at this.
That's how it is
Yeah,
part
very
of
much
my
so.
job. It's part of my job, actually. But no. So
Yeah,
hopefully
well,
that's helpful.
Well, thank you. Any other questions for me? I know I've probably hit my time limit.
The only other thing I was going to mention, Deb, is it might be something that you could take to the consortia under Future Ready, and then also potentially think about the next round of grant funding that's coming from Future Ready, and take a look at that and see if it makes sense to put in an application.
Perfect. Yep. And then I have all my access to ODE, but again, with any legislative concept or funding, they have to stay out of it right now. So thank you. All great ideas. So I will do some homework and kind of circle back up with the workforce readiness group, and then all of our others who are working in this space, and see what we can pull forward. And I'll share it with Todd, and then he can choose to share it forward if he feels it fits. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for all your work for students and young folks in Oregon. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
All right. Bye-bye.
You too.
So we are on the agenda. Let's see here.
I think we got it.
I think we got it, and we got 8 minutes to spare. Am I wrong, or am I confused?
We got about 17.
17. Oh, because I see Clay was going to start at 2:55. Oh, that's where I got it. So when was, okay, wow, yeah. Okay, well, that's not bad. We were going to end at 3
Sherry,
o'clock.
I got a couple of follow-ups to do. I'll make sure I reach out to you and Chelsea. We'll schedule some time to meet and go over things. I'll try to have the notes that I took incorporated in some potential additional agreements. And so we can sort of talk that over, and then we'll count on you, Chelsea, to be the acronym guru when we meet, see if we can make that happen. And then hopefully in short order, we'll get the sort of draft agreements out to everybody for comments.
Mm-hmm. And I will send you my autopilot notes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything else? Yeah, so we have 15 minutes. It's a snowy day. So anything else anyone like to add or follow up on, or any, also just, is there anything that the members of the group are working on that they would like to share, or they think anybody would like to know? Anything going on in your world that you think might be helpful for the board to know about? None. Nothing's going on in your worlds. No, I'm just kidding. Nothing you want to share right in a minute. The number one thing going on in my world is I have a hummingbird at the heated feeder who's been really hanging with it all through the snowstorm, and he or she, I don't know their gender, is now off. It's like, I'm good. This hummingbird has been there like every day and at night. Apparently hummingbirds go into a type of stupor when it's cold. It's actually very fascinating. They kind of go into a trance and kind of wobble around. It's weird.
Well, they
So
don't.
the more you know. There you go. All right. Well, we are 15 minutes early, and I'd love to give time back. I think that is great for busy people. Okay.
Yes, Sherry, thank you for all your help and your leadership. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all. Bye-bye.